New technologies keep on coming up, especially about artificial intelligence. Very exciting. How do you see the mobile industry, the telecom industry, is interacting with AI to both ways, both traffic?
Yeah, no, I think AI will be a fantastic complement with a strong 5G network or strong connected society. Putting AI on top will give immense possibilities for creating much more optimized flows, much more optimized work positions. But of course there are bad things as well, so we need to work with both the good and also the bad. I would think that if you remember 4G, why do we need 4G? We have 3G. But 4G was actually the first time we had a unified standard across the globe. And that meant that we have all these OTT companies, Facebook, now Meta, Uber, Airbnb, all these Spotify, all these beautiful companies that we today use on a daily basis, they are sort of feeding off the global standard. And I'm pretty sure that 5G and AI will cater for the next generation.
Not only 5G, but even 6G now. You are working very hard, you and your colleagues, against the fragmentation of standards regarding 6G. Now, we are in a fragmented world to a certain extent. So what are some of the most efficient ways do you see that would prevent that, the fragmentation of standards happen? If the fragmentation of standards happen, there will be chaos and also lack of efficiency, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we as consumers will suffer. The quality will go down, the price point will go up. So definitely that's something we do not want. And I think maybe one of the simple ways to stop calling it 6G. And instead call it releases. We will have continuous release. We're now waiting for release 18 and then we're going to have release 19. So it's just a continuation. It's just an evolving new technology. Like in any world, you get new updates over the air, on your handheld or on your PC on a regular basis. It would be the same thing. So I think we, GSMA and the industry, I think we need to maybe take a step back and say, well, let's not talk about the Gs. Let's talk about releases, and then it becomes sort of less contagious and less hefty.
When we think about the artificial intelligence, we're likely to see real quote-unquote apps based on large language models rather than on the current phones that we are using. So how do you see for your industry this kind of challenge and opportunity at the same time?
Well, we are working with something called Open Gateway.
Yes.
It's a way for us to open up our networks. And I think you can say on your mobile phone today, you maybe use what, 10-15% of the capacity. So 80-85% is just there that you're not using. Same thing with our network. So if we can open up our networks for app developers, for hyperscalers, and say, come, use us, use the capabilities that we already have for the betterment of your customers, from our customers, and we can grow the industry. That is a good step forward, and we will see roaming, but from an application perspective. So a new way of doing business. It will be global, and it requires all mobile operators to work together, shoulder by shoulder, and having integrated the APIs into their network. We have a chance now to do with Open Gateway and the application roaming. And AI will definitely play a role here. And exactly how, I'm not sure yet, but it will definitely play a role.
There's an AI Act coming from the EU countries. Meanwhile, you also see collective consensus. Recently, the UN at the General Assembly passed a resolution in which more than 100 countries, including China and the US, were both on board. What are your suggestions? How this ecosystem needs to be shaped?
Let's not regulate too quickly. Let's make sure that we innovate properly first. And then when we start to see anomalies or things that are becoming weird or bottlenecks, then we might need to regulate. But if we start to go even more in detail, I'm afraid that we will constrain the development of AI. So let's avoid that for now. Development is going so fast. If you ask a regulator to regulate, that will take a year or so, and AI has moved bounds and forward.
Yes, indeed.
Forward. So whatever we were regulating will be completely obsolete.
And of course, these issues could be also related to trade protectionism, and the list goes on geopolitics. Yeah. It will make things only even more complicated.
But we have issues with dialect, we have issues with culture, because LLMs are taught a specific way of saying things, specific culture, if you would like. So the question is, will we have local LLMs? Or how will that work with the global LLMs that can be there as well? So there are several unknowns that we do not really understand as of yet.
How do you see your industry's both awareness and also implementation?
We want to have more people using mobile internet than only the 60% of the globe that is doing that today. 40% is not. And I don't want to retire and see that a world which is almost half and half that are part of it, 60% part, 40% are not part. That is not okay. We have to work with governments, with companies, with think tanks, NGOs to bridge that gap. We know the barriers. Yes. We know the barriers, but it is complicated to reach. It's not a technology issue. It is a culture, financial issue, taxation issue. It is a skills issue. So it's more complex. From my perspective, being an engineer, it's quite fascinating to see how a technology can become such a great enabler of almost everything.
Meanwhile, you have many partners here in China. Yeah. How do you see their involvement and also roles?
Well, as I said, 5G, almost a leader in 5G, together with a couple of other countries, very encouraging. In my board, I have, of course, the three big operators, China Mobile, China Telecom, China Unicom, and they're playing a very active role, participating in several working groups and wanting to contribute, which is a step forward. It is much more of an open and good dialogue, I would say now, than a couple of years back. So we're very encouraged to see that happening. So for us, China has always been very important.